Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ashley and you're watching The Rural Companion. In today's video, I'm going to go over my top 5 questions that you should ask before joining a homeschool group. Now, this is kind of a meaty subject, so make sure you grab a drink. I have an iced matcha, and I'm definitely obsessed with this lately, so you should probably give it a whirl. As well as be sure to head over to my blog after you're done watching this video, which is theruralcompanion.com, so you can get your own checklist of the questions to ask before joining a homeschool group. All right, something that probably drives my children as well as my children's church class and my Sunday school class, all of the kids crazy, is that back to school season is my favorite time of year. I don't know if it's because we're getting closer to fall and the weather starts getting cooler, which I think it's still over 100 today or close to it here in Oklahoma. It might be that. Might be the temperatures. It might also be the fact that when we get back to school, we kind of have that natural rhythm to our days. We wake up, we have breakfast, then we do our learning in the morning, work in the afternoon or free time. A lot of times it's free time. And then we kind of come back together in the evenings before activities or church. And I just love back to school. If you are like me and you love back to school season, or maybe you're questioning this year what you should do for back to school, maybe your kids have been going to school for the past couple years and it's just not working out, or you've been trying homeschool one style and that's not working out, be sure to check out my video right over here about the different homeschool methods. You might want to give something new a try this year. And this is the perfect time of year because we're not too far into the school year that you can switch. You have the freedom to do that if you haven't heard that. And I would love to just encourage you to check that video out and find what works for you and your family. Okay, now what our video is fully about, the 5 questions that I recommend that you ask before joining a homeschool group. Now, how I came about these questions and specifically our own journey, make sure you stick around to the very end of this video because I will touch on that briefly. Okay, so the first question that I recommend that you ask is, what type or style of homeschool group is this? Now, there are several different options. You have the co-op style, and this one is a little bit more of a formal schedule, formal meeting time. It typically has a leader and then several co-leaders, and you often are having specific classes during your scheduled meet time. Most of the time, parents are teaching these. Occasionally, a teacher will be brought in if the parents aren't comfortable teaching a specific subject. And then you'll also have your monthly or maybe quarterly field trips scheduled out, and they typically have something to do with what the students are learning during that month or quarter, that time frame. Another type of group you have is the social or support group. This one is typically a leisurely, laid-back group. There's often a set schedule sort of for meeting times and gatherings, but not necessarily a specific course schedule or student schedule, what the students would be learning, what the parents would be talking about. It can be primarily a gathering for families. It could be specifically for a certain age group of children. It may be for moms and or dads. It could also be park days, field trips, things like that. So it definitely is not going to have quite the same structure as a co-op, but more of a community style gathering support group, if you will. The next type of group that we have is the specific activity group. Now, this is going to be one specific class or activity geared towards homeschool students. Now this could be anywhere from an art class, a music class, a choir, a drama, pretty much any of the extracurricular activities that would be offered at a school, a traditional school setting. This is what type of group you would have. Now, of course, you could do this and another group if you wanted. There are so many ways that your family could choose to add or not choose to add an extracurricular style activity group. Our family does 2 of them. We have Civil Air Patrol and a karate and Krav Maga class. Now, neither of these are specific to homeschool students. However, they are primarily composed of homeschool students because these are the classes that homeschool families are looking for in our area. Okay, another type of group that we have is the regional or virtual groups. Now, in our state of Oklahoma, we have a statewide homeschool group, and I have referenced this before. It is a Christian group for our state, so I don't know if there is a secular version, but most states do have some form of statewide homeschool group. You'll probably find their website and or a page on Facebook, and they typically offer some bits of information, maybe educational related. Most likely they have a lot of resources for getting started in homeschooling or connecting with other homeschool groups or families, and occasionally they will host statewide homeschool field trips or homeschool conventions. I know our Oklahoma homeschool does, I think they offer a fall field trip, and then again in the springtime, and they do a large group discount, and it's just we don't know anybody in the group, but it's just a fun way to come together and do field trips. And because I'm not on Facebook, I probably miss out on a lot of the connections with the other families, so that could be why we haven't met anyone, but that might be beneficial for moms and dads to be able to meet families virtually who homeschool in their state and kind of just bounce ideas off of. Okay, the next question that I have is, what is being taught in the group? Now, this one could range from a specific style of homeschool, like I talked about in our homeschool methods video. It could be specifically a classical style of education. All the classes are based on that. It could be something just a religious or Christian, like a church-based teaching structure. It's also possible that the group just decides on a theme for maybe each school year, each semester, and would teach topics based on that theme. This particular question, you have several other questions that kind of go along with this. If your family believes a specific style of homeschool is best for your children, then this is something you are going to want to consider. If you are a Christian and they're teaching secular classes or vice versa, you are going to want to make sure that the classes that are being taught align with your family's values and beliefs. It would also be good to find out who is teaching the classes, how they become teachers, and if there are background checks required for teachers. Okay, the next question we're going to want to ask of the group is, who is in leadership? Of course, if it is a more formal style of a homeschool group, someone or a group of someones are going to be in the leadership role. Someone is going to be in charge of planning the activities, the lessons, etc. It is important to know who this person is, what they believe, and kind of what their character or their family life is like. Now, this is probably not the most critical part in choosing a group. However, if you are concerned with who is around your children, you are going to want to make sure that it starts with a good leader. Some other questions under this leadership category is, how are leaders appointed to their role? If there are multiple leaders, how are they just given the specific role that they are in? Is there any type of accountability system among the leaders? And if there are problems, issues, questions, what type of structure or process is in place for members to question the leadership? And finally, how is conflict handled in the group amongst leaders, members, etc.? The fourth question that you should ask before joining a homeschool group is who can join this group? Now, again, if it is a specific style of homeschool group, so for example, classical conversations, they would only be wanting families that are doing the classical style of education. So you would want to make sure that your family are able to join this specific group. Some groups do not accept families that do a specific style of homeschool or do not do a specific style of homeschool. So this is something that you are going to want to look into before joining this group. Some other questions, again, what is the process to join the group? So is it an application process? Is there a specific date for getting your application in? Is there, are there any fees involved in joining? Is there a background check required for the parents? Does the group handle that? Do you need to handle that privately? Is there a specific set of standards or rules that the family must abide by? If so, what are they? This would be something vital for your family to know before signing up for a group, paying the fees, and then you have to dress a certain way or do something that maybe your family doesn't exactly believe. And then you might also want to ask how students with special needs are received within the group. This may be vital for your family. It may not be of importance to you as you don't have any students with special needs, but especially if you do, this is going to be a big question for your family. Okay, now the fifth and final question is this group right for my family? Now, only you can decide that, and yes, I have given you some good questions to ask. Basically, I hope to get your wheels turning and get you thinking as to what type of group your family should be or wants to be a part of. And it is possible that you join a group for a year and then you find out, hey, you know, for the next season of our life, being a part of a group or being a part of this group just doesn't fit for us. So you can kind of take it 1 year at a time, and that is my biggest bit of advice, is take it 1 year at a time. Don't feel like what you start out with in elementary school for your firstborn, then you have to stick with them all the way through graduation. Okay, so now let's take a couple minutes to just talk about my family's homeschool group journey. Now, when my oldest was around 4.5, 5, we hadn't really started formal homeschooling yet, but we knew we were going to homeschool. We kind of had that plan set, and I realized that we probably should look into joining a homeschool group because I am an introvert and a homebody, and I would absolutely, hands down, rather stay at home than go be a part of any group ever. But both of my kids are absolute extroverts, love being around people, love being a part of a group, and I wanted to facilitate that. I think part of being in a family, being part of a homeschool family specifically, is learning how to compromise. So some days we really stay home all day, and that's for my benefit. And other days we go out and we spend the whole day out or spend the day with friends, and that is for my children's benefit. So when my daughter was about 4.5, 5, I searched for homeschool groups in our area, and I found one. It was called the Homies. We have such fond memories of this, as this was our first homeschool group. It was our first, like, really getting our feet wet, making homeschool friends. For me, learning how to put myself out there and choosing to find questions to talk to people about, and determining not to be those weird homeschoolers. So both of my kids enjoyed their time in this homeschool group. We spent several years a part of it, and it was just a social group that would get together for the the fun extras. We did Easter egg hunts, we would do movie days. I know for Christmas every year we would all pitch in and rent out a local room in a local community center, and we would bring popcorn and hot chocolate, and we would watch the Polar Express in pajamas and blankets and pillows, and it was just a very fun group based on social gatherings. We would do a field trip once a month and then a park day as well. A few years after that, probably when my oldest was around 3rd grade level or so, a person from our church at the time messaged a handful of the moms that she knew were homeschooling and let us know that she was interested in starting a homeschool group for the families of our church. Now, this was, again, something totally unfamiliar to me, as we went to a mega church at the time and we really didn't know too many families within our church. It was kind of like the anonymity in a crowd, kind of, and it worked for us. So the very first meeting was at a local playground. We got together with, I think it was 4 or 5 other families, moms and kids, and we discussed if we wanted to start a homeschool group, kind of how that looked for us. And we created another group that's, again, near and dear to my heart. We called it Iron Arrows, based off of the scripture that iron sharpens iron, and that children are arrows in the hands of their parents. And so we're kind of like launching them into the direction that we want them to go. So we started this group. Again, it was just a social style group. We did not do any educational style activities initially. We just would meet at a park and play, have lunch together. If it was raining, we would find an indoor playground like at McDonald's, back before COVID when they had those. And we would just gather and do just kind of like that social get together. Now, because we went to a mega church, we were not able to meet within our church. And I think that was kind of a huge disservice, honestly. I wish they would have allowed us to have a room, because eventually, once it got to wintertime, so we did that for several months, once it became wintertime, we knew we had to find an alternate location to actually meet because of the weather. We were able to find a local library with a meeting room, and we met there. And again, we were just kind of hanging out, having a social time, and if the weather was nice, then we would all carpool over to the park and play. After about a year, we decided, hey, we don't want any specific classes to be done, but when we gather in the meeting room at the library, we kind of needed something, because it was just a little bit of a free-for-all. And so we discussed it, we determined to do something biblical in nature, because all of us, that was kind of our common area. We didn't have education styles or beliefs the same, but we all believed in Jesus. We all went to the same church, so we thought we would do kind of like a Sunday school class style. At this point, we had one central leader, and then 2 of us moms were kind of like the extra, or the rotational leader. So amongst the 3 of us, our main leader, she would kind of pick the topic for the next couple months, and then the 3 of us would kind of take turns helping out as needed or leading as needed. And then after about probably a year later, the main leader, her whole life kind of just changed, and she needed to go back to work, so she was no longer able to lead the group. So myself and the other mom, we kind of took over the group. We continued the Bible classes, we did lots of fun activities, and we would just take turns kind of leading the lesson. And then again, we would go over to the park if the weather was nice. Occasionally we would do field trips. There was not really a specific time frame when we would do field trips, but it was just when it would come up, hey, this would be a fun field trip, hey, I found this, and we would do that. Now, we held that group together for probably an additional year, and then my family left the church that we were all attending, and so I didn't feel right being the primary leader, and I was at that time the primary leader, but I didn't feel right being the primary leader of a specific church group when we did not attend that church. So at that point, I offered if anyone else wanted to take over. Nobody was really interested, so we just let the group fizzle out, and it was fine. I think everybody was able to go their own ways, and my co-leader actually went on to create a really awesome homeschool group in that Tulsa region, and I think she's got a really fantastic group. So if you are looking for one in Tulsa, hit me up and I can point you in her direction. So around that time that we left the church, within 6 months, our family moved here, and I had found a group on Facebook in this area, but because of COVID, they weren't meeting. So we actually took about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years off, and it was amazing. Again, the homebody, I was so happy to not be a part of a group, and it was just exactly what we needed at that time, you know, with moving and just all the life transition. My husband was deploying for the first time. We now had 20 acres to take care of. And then, oh yeah, the pandemic and just all of the crazy that was going on. So not having any activities, we didn't do anything during that 1.5 years. It was amazing. Then COVID happened, then COVID bypassed, and the group started meeting again, and it was good for a while, but we kind of outgrew the group. I did have some issues with the leadership, and again, this is where I kind of came up with some of those more specific questions about what is being taught in the group, who is teaching it, how conflict is handled, who is in leadership. And if I had taken the time to look into those specific questions a little bit more diligently before we joined the group, I think we could have saved a lot of headache and maybe hassle. There was some gray areas that just were not being addressed appropriately, and I didn't feel like it was a safe place for my family, but also just a place that was beneficial to the season of life that my students were in. So we did leave the group, and that's probably all I'll say on that. Now my kids are again in Civil Air Patrol and Karate Krav, and then they do music lessons with a specific music teacher. And for this particular season of life, those groups, and then of course our church group, those all really meet that need for group and together in community for this specific season of our life. Now, should that change in a year or two? I don't know. We'll take it 1 year at a time, like I said. So if you have any more questions, I would love to chat with you in the comment section below. Of course, don't forget to head over to my blog, theruralcompanion.com, and I will have that checklist there for you, as well as this video in blog format. And again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. If you haven't already, hit that like button. And if you are not subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get each of the videos that I share each week on homeschooling, homesteading, and homemaking. Goodbye.